Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 12 of the Vuelta España. 195 kilometers on today's stage, and it's going to finish going up a beast of a climb at 19 kilometers long, 6.7%, with percentages up to 15%. Pinos Blancas is the name of the climb, and this is a famous climb. We did it back in 2013 in the Vuelta España when I won that year. That year was stage 8, so I'm very familiar with the climb, at least all the way up until about 4 kilometers ago, where they added a little bit more length to the climb because it wasn't quite long enough in 2013, I guess. Now, my experience in 2013 tells me that when I'm sitting on the couch today, the attacks are going to come fast and hard on today's climb if it's done right, because the climb at 6.7%, it is a climber's finish to today's stage 12, but it's not a very steep climb. It's fast, it's technical and twisty, and it goes through some trees and forests. So there's a lot of shade on the course, and the climb kind of stair steps. The first part's hard, and then it's going to bridge across basically from one small mountain to the next mountain where it stair steps, and then it starts getting twisty all the way up to the finish and narrow up for that last 4 kilometers all the way up to the finish where it gets a little bit steeper pitches on today's final climb. Now, when the racing starts, it's going to be a big break up the road. 32 riders are in the front group, and they got about a 6.5 minute gap at just under 85 kilometers to go. When we go back to the peloton, we'll see it's Quick Step, of course, right in the front, but they only have 5 guys in the front group because they have one guy, Vervaeke, in that front group of 32. I don't like this tactic at all. I would much prefer when you only have 6 guys and it's going to finish up a summit climb and you have Remco Evenepoel riding with the kind of form he has. There's no reason to have a rider in that front group. Now, Quick Step will agree with me, and they'll pull that front rider out eventually with about 30 or 25 kilometers to go. We don't actually see him drop out of that front group. Now, when we start getting into the racing, we want to look at those 32 riders group so that you can figure out what the tactics might be on today's stage 12 of the Vuelta España. Guys in there that you need to think about. Mike Teunissen's in there from Jumbo-Visma. Astana have 2 riders, Samuel Battistelli, Alexi Lusenko, Bora Hansgrohe, Matteo Fabron, and Wilco Kelderman, the highest on the general classification at 14 minutes and 4 seconds back. Richard Carapaz from Ineos is there. Movistar have 2 riders with Rojas and Oliveira represented. And then there's Louis Vervaeke, which I told you he'll drop out eventually. Marco Brunner from DSM, the 19-year-old kid's in there, and he's got one teammate with Jonas. Now, UAE team members have Marc Soler, Oliveira, and Jan Polanc. Next guys you got to think about in today's stage has got to be Albacin de Koenig up there with Tamino, Gianni Vermaas, and Jay Vine. 2-time stage winner here at the Vuelta España is in that front group. So when we start looking at the tactics and you start thinking about what could happen on today's stage, especially when you go back and now look at the peloton with only 5 Quick Step riders and they're only running one Remy Cavagna on the front. That means that this front group of 32 really wanted to put pressure on the race leader's red jersey. They could blow this race apart on today's stage. But here's the problem, and this is what I hate. You never see multiple teams start working together. Sometimes you can see 2 or 3, maybe even 4 start working together. But when I do the math and I start looking at this group of 32, I see 8 different teams up there, plus a 9th if you add Albacin de Koenig up there. When you start breaking this down, if every one of those riders in that front group, if we got Mike Teunissen riding full gas, UAE team Emirates with their riders riding full gas, Movistar have 2 up there, if they start riding full gas, if all the teams in the top 10 on the general classification, plus Albacin de Koenig, really want to put pressure on the race leader's red jersey of Quick Steps, Remco Evenepoel, this is the moment to do it, guys. This was the golden opportunity if you really want to put pressure on Remco Evenepoel. Instead, the front group of 32, sure, they're riding somewhat decent in chemistry because it's not until about 65 kilometers to go where we see Samuele Battistella from Astana throw in attack, but of course that's brought back because Arkea Samsics are riding for Elie Gersbeer up there. We see Albacin de Koenig riding for Jay Vine, and so we know the MO right now. When Jay Vine has teammates of this magnitude, 2 teammates with 65 kilometers to go, they're going to ride full gas all the way into the last climb because that's only 40 more K. So they do that, and of course they bring back Samuel Battistelli with about 40 kilometers to go. At 45 kilometers to go, when we go back to the general classification Peloton-led quick-step team, we go into a right turn, and you'll see the quick-step guys. Some are going wide, and there you see Remco Evenepoel cutting the inside, and guess what? He loses the tires just like his teammate did, Julian Alaphilippe, on yesterday's Stage 11 of the Vuelta a España. With that tire loss, we see Remco Evenepoel going down on the ground, and he's got his climber, Van Wilder, that went down with him. Guessing there from Jumbo-Visma, I saw him tied up a little bit, but not certain if he hit the ground, and he'll be the first to leave. Remco Evenepoel will get up with Van Wilder, and we'll see Remco Evenepoel taking his time, switching bikes, and then he jumps back on his bike and comes back up to the official's car and starts arguing with the official. My best make of this, it sounded as if there might have been a motorcycle parked in the front or too close to the inside, and that caused Remco Evenepoel to try to dodge it a little bit and possibly lose the front end. Completely hypothetical, though. That's what I was taking out of the conversation of Remco Evenepoel arguing with the officials. Now, Remco Evenepoel gets back up to the front group, and they keep setting tempo up there with Remy Cavagna as the gap starts extending out now to about 11 and a half minutes. We'll ride in today's final climb, Pinos Blancas, with about 20 kilometers to go. There's going to be a sprint, and then after that, the climb's going to start going up proper. Astana rider was the first to come across to gain some little bit of money for Team Astana, but nothing else other's going to come out of that for Astana. Now when the climb starts with 19 kilometers to go in this front group, it's not going to be Alpecin de Koenig riding the front. They ran into the start of the climb at the front for Jay Vine, but it's going to be Bora Hansgrohe getting on the front with Matteo Fabron. Now Fabron is doing a stellar job at the front for Wilco Kelderman, who, let me remind you, he's a threat on the general classification at just over 2 minutes back on the GC. Now Matteo Fabron, we start seeing guys going out the back from his pace setting as he starts reducing this group of 31 riders up front, because no one can hold this pace that's not a pure climber. With guys coming out the back left and right, we go back up front and we see Matteo Fabron sweating and working hard at the front for his race leader at this moment anyways, Wilco Kelderman. Kelderman sitting second wheel. Fabron is throwing in a stellar job all the way till about 5 kilometers to go on today's stage, and then we're going to start seeing some attacks. First attack is going to come into the form of Elie Gersbert from Arkea Samsic. With that attack, we start seeing other riders coming out the back as it's Soler that's getting dropped. Jan Polanc back there, he was suffering a bit, and he finds his way back on for UAE Team Emirates. And then Jan Polanc will throw in the next big attack here on Stage 12 on Pinos Blancas. Now we start coming into the finish. Wilco Kelderman, who pulled back Elie Gersbert, he's riding the front, covering attacks, trying to gain some time on the general classification. And then with 2 kilometers to go, it's going to be Richard Carapaz, Team Ineos, that throws in attack. He throws in a vicious tack. He's got Elie Gersbert on his wheel. Wilco Kelderman following third wheel. He looks back over his shoulder. He sees both those riders start to crack, and the gap opens up. And now we see the Ineos rider, Richard Carapaz, throwing in 100%. He's out of the saddle, sprinting all the way up to the line as fast as he possibly can, because just behind he's got Wilco Kelderman holding him at about 10 seconds. Now as the final meters start to come, we see Richard Carapaz do one more acceleration out of the saddle. He's going to look back, and now he knows he's got today's Stage 12 victory in hand for Team Ineos. Second to cross the line on the stage is going to be Wilco Kelderman. Third, I don't know how he did it, but Soler, who got dropped with about 5 kilometers to go with these first attacks coming from Elie Gersbert and Jan Polanc, his teammate. Now all of a sudden we see Soler has found his way back up to round out the podium here on Stage 12 of the Vuelta a España. Now let's go back to the GC that's just getting ready to start the climb with 19 kilometers to go. Of course, it's Quick Step on the front, but not for very long, as we see Jumbo-Visma got a plan in action here with 19 kilometers to go on Stage 12 of the Vuelta a España. It's going to be Rowan Dennis taking over. He starts reducing the field as we start seeing the non-GC guys and non-climbers coming out the back. With Rowan Dennis at the front, he's going to do about 5 kilometers on the front, and then Movistar are going to take over. Not for too long, though, because Chris Harper wants to do some work for Primoz Roglic, and that's the last pure climber for Jumbo-Visma they have, aside from Roglic himself. As Harper's at the front, we see Sam Omen coming out the back. That means when we look further up at the GC favorite, Primoz Roglic sitting second on the general classification. His teammate on the front, Chris Harper, is the last rider, and there's nobody around Primoz Roglic here on the final climb of Stage 12 of the Vuelta a España. Now, as Harper blows, all of a sudden we're going to see a tap with about 7 kilometers to go. That is Remco Evenepoel tapping Vervaeke, his teammate that was sitting third wheel, to go to the front and start setting some tempo. This is the first time that Quick-Step have had to ride the front here. Haven't been any attacks at all, have just been smooth pace setting from Roland Dennis, from Movistar, from Chris Harper, and now Vervaeke's hopping on the front for his leader, Remco Evenepoel. Now, with 3 Quick-Step riders still left in the group, Vervaeke doesn't have to ride too long because all of a sudden Danny Navarro's going to throw in the first attack. He's not a threat on the general classification, but now Movistar are going to start putting more of their guys on the front to try to find out what kind of fitness Remco Evenepoel has here on stage 12 of the Vuelta a España. It's going to be a hard lesson when the stage is all said and done, though, for all the teams out here, because when we look at Quick-Step's Remco Evenepoel, he's covering every move, no problem. Now, we start getting under 3 kilometers to go. Moss throws in attack, but Remco Evenepoel's directly on it. Lopez from Astana, Miguel Angel Lopez, he's got some climbing for him. He's in that front group of 3, but when we look further back in that second group, there's Primoz Roglic, second on the general classification. He's got Carlos Rodriguez from Ineos along that's helping out, pulling to come back up to this front group of GC favorites. Primoz Roglic will close the gap to get himself back up into this battle for the general classification. Then with 2.5 kilometers to go, it's Tao Gegenhardt on the front for his teammate Carlos Rodriguez. He'll pull for just a few hundred meters as we go into the left bend. We'll see there this Tao Gegenhardt pulling off, and Carlos Rodriguez throws in a big attack. Now we get under 2 kilometers to go. Remco Evenepoel's had enough of this cat and mouse game going on, and the red race leader's jersey here at the Vuelta a España starts setting some tempo. When we look on his wheel, it's the top 5 of the general classification. First is there, Remco Evenepoel, obviously. Primoz Roglic is in second. Moss third. We start looking Carlos Rodriguez fourth. And fifth on the GC, Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates is there, along with seventh on the general classification, Lopez. Now, at this moment, you got to have some good form if you want to ride 2 kilometers all the way to the finish, and Remco Evenepoel believes he does. He'll look back over his shoulder, see everybody's there, and he doesn't care as he just starts setting tempo. Now, with about 300 meters to go, with more acceleration from Remco Evenepoel, we start seeing Carlos Rodriguez. Team Ineos can't hold the pace, and up front, Remco Evenepoel is accelerating harder. With 150 meters to go, he gives a big burst of speed, starts getting a gap on Moss and Primoz Roglic, with Juan Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates holding on for dear life. Remco will pass the finish line on today's stage. We're 15th on the stage, about 7 minutes and 40 seconds back from the time of Carapaz up front. That'll keep his red race leader's jersey intact here at the Vuelta a España, with just rider finishing on his wheel being Enric Mas, Primoz Roglic, and Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates. Guys losing time on the general classification. Lopez eventually set up from the pace setting from Remco Evenepoel being just too high. And of course, Carlos Rodriguez from Team Ineos just couldn't handle the pace, and he dropped off and lost about 10 seconds up there to Remco Evenepoel. Now, when I dissect today's stage, guys, this was a massive loss of opportunity here when you're looking at the pressure that was put under the race leader's red jersey here of Quick-Step. 32 riders in this front group. I counted possibly 17 riders in this front group of 32 that had a lot to gain to just go up to the front and drive it as hard as they can. And I mean riders, when we're talking about, you're looking at all the teams in the top 10, they're all represented in this front group up here. And so if they just go to the front and start setting a massive tempo and start drilling it 100% with their guys under the ideal that, hey, I don't want to win today's stage. I just want to blow this race up and make Remco Evenepoel and Quick-Step have to chase 100% as hard as they possibly can. Instead, when we look at Quick-Step, they rode Remy Cavagna basically for 2/3 of this stage, if not all of it. Now, I didn't get to see the beginning part, and I'm sure there's a little bit of stress there before this group of 32 formed. But from 85 kilometers all the way to the finish, Remco Evenepoel had just Remy Cavagna riding the front all the way into the final climb here before his Quick-Step team climbers got on the front in the form of Vervaeke and Dylan van Wilder. Now, with those guys setting the pace and not having to ride throughout all of those climbers to the beginning of this climb, that means they could easily defend the lead, even though it started this climb at 11 minutes and 30 seconds. That's an easy protection there of the general classification. This was a missed opportunity. Now, nobody's knuckleheads, because throughout my whole 25 years of racing professional, I've never seen 8, 9 teams all work together. They never think that way. But when you go back, if you want to bring it back just to the basics of racing, the ideal of racing is to try to win the Vuelta a España. Now, Remco Evenepoel is on fantastic form, but today was the stage that you could have taken the race leader's red jersey away from him and caused all kinds of chaos throughout today's stage. And Remco Evenepoel should have lost today's stage if all those teams in the top 10 who should be racing for the general classification and instead switched over to trying to win the stage instead of helping their GC guys who are in the top 10 of general classification, put Remco Evenepoel under massive pressure, have to run his whole team all the way into this last climb, and then he has to ride all the way up from the bottom to the top on his own with no teammates. That means it leaves the opportunity for Primoz Roglic to attack because he had Mike Tunison up there. It means it leaves the opportunities for two Ineos riders back there, Carlos Rodriguez, Teo Gegenhardt, top 10 on the general classification. Remember, they had Carapaz who won the stage, thinking about the stage win, not the GC. If he was up there pulling 100%, now all of a sudden those two riders could attack on this final climb. And this was the perfect kind of climb to gain time on a Remco Evenepoel. Instead, we see the crazy tactics from Jumbo-Visma pulling the front. And I called it crazy. I'm going to back off just a little bit from crazy because with the crash of Remco Evenepoel with 45 kilometers to go, possibly that's why you ride your team on the front all the way up this climb, is hoping that Remco Evenepoel might be under some kind of injury from that crash at 45 kilometers to go. But in general, you didn't have to employ that tactic. You could have just employed the tactic of all the guys in the top 10 of general classification that have teammates up there, ride 100%, gain 20, 25 minutes on Quick-Step behind, or make Quick-Step run all 5 of their guys for Remco Evenepoel, and then he's left with no teammates starting his final climb, and you just start attacking them all day long. When you come into a climb like this, though, even with that gap at 11 minutes and 30 seconds, if you want to say, okay, we want to race for the stage, you race for the stage. But you don't pull him to the finish. You can't pull Remco Evenepoel, the best climber at the Vuelta a España, all the way up the climb. You have to attack him, make him use his teammates, and make it isolated. So at the end of today's stage, I was excited to see 32 guys in this group, but at the end of the stage, it just fizzled out. I mean, was it an exciting stage to watch? Absolutely. But when you look at the final result, I love the stage, but when you look at the final result, nothing happened. Right? Nothing happened. Remco Evenepoel didn't have to ride till 2 kilometers to go because everybody else rode for him all going up this climb instead of just attacking him left and right or putting pressure on him in that front group of 32 riders. 17 riders in that front group of 32 all had reasons to put massive time on Remco Evenepoel behind, and they didn't take advantage of it. And when it's all said and done, if you simplified the race, nothing happened. That's the way it is. That's the problem with bike racing. They got to start thinking the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is always to put pressure on the race leader's red jersey of Remco Evenepoel, especially when he has this kind of form. Anyways, I loved watching the race, but disappointed at the finish. Hope you guys enjoyed my take here on the butterfly effect. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition real soon.